Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to The Book Refuge. Alright, today I am so excited to be bringing you another Taboo romance rec. This one is one that I've done before, so I will link the first video that I've done for this one. But today we are going to be doing breath play or throat necklaces or choking recommendations, whichever way we want to call it. I'm sure all of those words have upset YouTube, so we'll see how it goes. But I just, of all of the types of schminky things out there, there's just something about a throat grab that I really love. Now, there is also the next level up from just the very possessive nature of a hand being on a throat, which I just really enjoy. I really enjoy that. There's also when we actually start to constrict or control this area when we are having intimate moments. So for those of you who always like to ask what the trope is, that is what this one is. This is sexy times where breath is being constricted in some way. This is usually a part of a dark romance, at least the ones that I'm recommending, though of course there are going to be some that are just more straight up BDSM where it's used and then it doesn't feel quite as dark. But particularly all of the ones I'm recommending, except for one of them, are legit dark romances, so there are going to be other trigger warnings going into these, so just know that. But when you come to a Taboo rec from Jen, you gotta expect things to get a little dark and a little twisty, right? Like, that's just part of it. But let's get through it. I actually have quite a few recommendations for this one. And the first rec that I have is kind of the one that inspired me to do this video again, as well as it has showed up on my book recommendation form a few times. So I knew people were wanting more of these. But this whole series by this author has had like throat stuff in all of these and I just love it so much. But I actually forgot to grab that book because it's on my book cart. But Vicious Hearts by Jagger Cole. I know I've been talking about Jagger Cole a lot. Are you listening? Have you tried him yet? He is just everything that I want. This series starts with Deviant Hearts, but Vicious Hearts is book number 2, and you really can read these probably in any order that you would like, so you can start with this one if you want. But again, like I said, there has been some very like dominant throat possession in all 3 of these books so far that I've read. But Vicious Hearts has, it has some of the most vicious and very sexy scenes. This one also has some primal play and good stuff in it. But this is a Mafia romance. It's an age gap, marrying my enemy type scenario. And it actually begins with our heroine attempting to kill the male main character because she's been ordered to do it for reasons. She definitely is like in over her head with doing this. It's not something she would have chose to do on her own. She doesn't personally even have a vendetta against Killian that she's going after him, but she needs to do this to, like I said, protect someone that she loves. So yeah, she goes about doing that, and he decides to kind of appease some of the lieutenants and like higher ups in his mafia organization that because of who her father really is, he should just marry the woman who tried to kill him. And he's also very, very turned on by the fact that she was able to get so close to ending him. And yeah, they have a very spicy, sexy relationship with each other after that. Next, we have another one that I recently just read, and I don't fully know if I recommend this one, but when I'm doing Taboo recs, I don't necessarily only go for 5-star books for these because it's definitely, it fits in that oddly specific area. So I'm just going to let you know the books that have this in it and leave it up to you what you want to try. But I recently read Hitched by Lauren Beale, and this is a dark hitchhiker romance where our heroine is actually an abused a wife who is driving home in the rain one night and she sees this man who's hitchhiking and she just can't help herself. She stops to get him and he tries to get her to leave. Not overly hard, but he's like, you don't want to pick me up. You're maybe not even going the right place. And she's like, no, I can't leave. You get in. I'll give you a ride to the closest place. And his plan was to carjack whoever picked him up because he is an escaped felon. And he's decided, okay, if this woman has no self-preservation, I'm just going to go for it. And so he takes her in more ways than one. But when he finds out how she's been mistreated by her husband, he decides to do something about it. But he definitely takes payment in a few ways. As I said, these are very dark romance recommendations, so I'm not promising sunshine and roses. I did have some issues with how the pacing in this book went, but I mean, this basically has 5 chili peppers worth of spice within this story because there is so many kinks done in this one. This one will show up in other Taboo recs because just of the amount of things that were done in this one. It's going to show up in a lot of videos. So yeah, if you're someone who wants to check out different kinky things and doesn't mind dark romance, I think this is a great option as well if you don't have trigger warnings like, I mean, I don't want to say normal people because not all people have to have triggers, but there you go. So yeah, then we'll move right along to The Losers Duet by Harley LaRue. And I wouldn't even call this one a duet. It's literally part 1 and part 2. I know it's a duet because there's 2 books, but what I appreciate about Harley LaRue is that she was upfront saying this is part 1 and part 2, which to me isn't the same as going into a book and like feeling tricked that there's going to be a second half. And I also feel like this author made a good decision to have this be, I mean, if not 2 parts, like it should be one huge book because this is a why choose scenario. Some people could call it RH if you wanted to, but for me, it really is more of a polyamorous relationship that happens because we have these 4 men who this story actually begins in the Dare, but I wanted to recommend this duet because I just love it. But these 5 all went to high school at one point, and if you see the Dare, which is a like prequel novella to what happens in The Losers, and there are these 4 men who are considered like outcasts and losers, and now when we start The Losers, we are a few years in the future, and Jessica's back in town now, and she ends up caught up with these men again, and not really giving a fuck what the rest of the town thinks of her anymore, the way that she did when she was in high school, and it caused her to maybe make some poor decisions based on her popularity and such. But you know what? I can forgive her. She was a teen and, you know, popularity is a thing. But now she ends up in a place where she owes these men something, and they make her an offer to fix her car for her in exchange for her servicing them. And she does agree to this. She doesn't have the money to pay for it, and so she agrees to do whatever they want. And these men are actually in like 2 relationships, and they do play together sometimes. So this one definitely has BDSM involved, and they're all bisexual men. And the reason why I like that this duet is so long is I truly felt like I knew each of the men. They felt individual to me, as well as their relation. Like, there's so many relationships that Harley LaRue is working in this story, and if it had been shorter, I feel like it would have had the problem of quite a few other why choose or reverse harem that I've read, where I just can't tell the men apart. So then it's like, what the point? You know, you've just added another cock in. You didn't add another person for me to love in. And in this case, I really cared about each of the men in the relationship, and I like that. But yes, of course, lots of good kinky stuff in this one as well, and so we're gonna have some choking and breath play involved with more people than just the girl in this one, which is great. Love it. Then we get into actually a couple serial killer books that I have to recommend. So there is Black Sheep by Alexa Harlow and Bryn Weaver. This is another one that has so many amazing kinks in it. Like, wow, this book is crazy. In this one, there's actually a female serial killer named Bria Brooks, and she comes off as very reserved and charming, but she's really going after members of cults because she was in one when she was young, very much like fucked up her life, and she was almost killed by a cult. Like that's what happened to her, and she was left for dead. And the person who found her was actually a serial killer himself. And for some reason, he doesn't want to end this girl. He wants to kind of raise her up and let her get justice for what happened to her. There's definitely a lot more complexity into the relationship than that, but that's what we're doing for the sake of a brief explanation, right? And now we have her and she goes after these people. And we actually begin with her having sex with a man that she's about to kill, and it's great. So then there is Dr. Elijah Kaplan, who is also on the hunt for a leader of a cult. And he is someone he's been trying to catch for a long time. And he ends up where I believe like it's at a, like she's going to become like a graduate student, or is she like I can't remember what she's trying to get, but basically he kind of like fucks up her interview because before he sees her, or before he meets her for the interview, he like sees her at a coffee shop and thinks that she's really beautiful, and then he kind of fucks up the interview, and he really makes a mistake, and he honestly gets on her bad side. Like, she is watching him because she's so pissed at how he might have just ruined her academic career. But thankfully, Elijah is actually like a secret softie, and he goes about making sure she still gets a job, just not directly under him. And this also helps out because he was very attracted to her. And when she's watching him, because she does start surveilling him, possibly to kill him because he had pissed her off. And what would a female serial killer do but off someone who pisses her off? And she discovers that he's quite the kinky man, and she's very intrigued by him. And so once a sexual relationship begins between these two, there's so many great things in this one. There's primal play in this one. There's the choking in this one. There's pegging in this one, because they are both switches. So they take turns with who is kind of the captor and the captive in this scenario. And I just ate that up because I feel like Bria was the perfect amount of dominant and submissive. Like, her dominance doesn't feel fake, but her submission is also like, she's very like bratty with it. She's like, if you want to control me, like, you have to earn it, but I'll submit to the right person if they deserve it, kind of thing. And I just love that. I loved it. So highly recommend. And again, this is another one that has lots of different kinks in it if you're interested. Then another wonderful, wonderful serial killer romance, of course, is There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. Love to bring this up. I haven't talked about this book too much because it, of course, fits very well into the dark areas of things. So this is the first in a duet, of course. I have both copies of these, but I will hold these books very, very close to my heart because they are some of the hottest covers that came out of. These ones come out in 2021. I don't even remember when these ones came out. 2020, 2021, these came out. I'm not sure, but I'm sorry, this is a tragedy compared to this. Okay, it just is. It just is. The illustrated edition, great. I love all of Lena's designs, but this cover, y'all, we can't deny. This cover is epic. Okay, anyway, moving on. So this one is, we have these two kind of like dueling serial killers. Well, one of them's trying to like duel with the other, and the other, Cole, he just wants to, you know, live his life as an artist and kill when he wants to and have it be that. And then we have Mara, who sadly ends up in the crossfire of these two, and she gets kind of used as a prize from Alistair Shaw to Cole. Like, he's going to deliver her to him and prove that Cole can be brought low by a pretty face, and Cole just leaves her there. So she lives, but no one believes what almost happened to her, because they say like, oh, well, you got yourself into this situation, and she's so angry about it. But she knows that Cole had just left her there, so now she knows about him. And so now she's very frightened, but like, who's she going to tell? Who's going to believe her? He's this very successful, dashing artist. Like, who's going to believe her? And Cole then kind of becomes her stalker, and then he becomes obsessed with her, just not in the way that like Alistair had wanted him to. And now we're in this very twisted relationship. So there's definitely like stalking in this one. There is some very scary situations. And then there is Mara slowly realizing that she doesn't want to be the tool in the games of men, but she's now wrapped up in this situation that she can't easily get out of. And yeah. And we're going to have some throat grabbing along the way, as well as some homemade sex toys and forced tattooing. And yeah, there's a lot in these. Sophie doesn't go gently, that's for sure. All right, then we have a monster romance, actually, called Titan by Gillian Graves. And this one is a gargoyle romance, but he's also a bit of a daddy dom. So I will say this is a very like soft, like daddy age play in this one. So it definitely more is for the spicy content. It doesn't get uncomfortable. At least it didn't for me. But in this one, we have a former child star who's actually had her money frozen by her mother and her manager, and they're trying to like take the rest of her money. And so she has had to become kind of like a sugar baby in the meantime, while she has to like fight out this lawsuit in the courts, which is just, I mean, it's just such a kick in the teeth, right? To have your mother doing this to you. It's so sad. But anyway, she also ends up in, I can't quite remember how they meet the first time. I think it's because they're casing the joint where she works. But these gargoyles are trying to get back an artifact that belongs to them. And I think that she works at a place where it's at. Don't quote me. It's been a little bit since I read this one. But he ends up wanting to like hire her to be his sugar baby because he just thinks she's perfect, and she doesn't mind that he wants to take care of her and do sexy things with her and use his big stone cock on her whenever he wants to. Ooh, it gets hot. But yeah, definitely some good spicy content in this one. And again, it doesn't get too uncomfortable with the age play, but there is some daddy, definitely some daddy talk going in this one. And I mean, I liked it. I was here for it. All right, then we have one of our more unhinged heroes. Like, I mean, I would say Hitched and Vicious Hearts are some very unhinged heroes, but now, it's funny enough, I actually have Unhinged on this list. Spoiler alert, we'll get to it. But one of the more unhinged heroes in here, we need to go to the paranormal to fully experience, and we have Bite Marks by Jenica Snow, and this one is a vampire romance that was a part of her, what's this series called? The Lycans, which is funny because this was the first one that was about a vampire that was in her Lycan series, but he's actually, I believe he's the brother of one of the characters' moms, so he's the uncle of one of the heroines, because there is a couple in this series that is a vampire and a Lycan pairing, and then they're the parents of a lot of the Lycans that we see. But Adrian, he is the brother of that, so he's the uncle of a lot of these. But he is a virgin hero, though he is not innocent by any means, because in this like paranormal world, like you only sleep with your mate, like you only fully get it on with your mate. And he finally, after all these years, discovers his mate. But he knows that he is going to be a lot to handle for whoever his mate is, because he is, you know, hundreds of years of evil and of pent-up sexual frustration and rage. And now his dick gets hard for the first time. And it is for this girl that he meets in a club. And he now begins stalking her. There is almost a little bit of somnophilia because he does sneak in her rooms and, you know, touch himself looking at her. And once he finally goes for her, he knows that he's going to completely overwhelm her. So this book is very, very hot, very intense. And he's just absolutely merciless. And then there's Kayla, and she's this breakable human to him. And he's like, she's never going to be able to fully handle me, either physically or as a mate. But, you know, Kayla might surprise him. She might surprise him. So this one, again, this one has like some primal play in it. It has stalking and, like I said, almost some somnophilia in here. And definitely an obsession with the throat, as a lot of vampires do. So there we go. All right, then I picked God of Wrath by Rena Kent. This one is book 3 in the Legacy of the Gods. This one is about, we'll have to look at the names. I'm so sorry. Cicely, yes, I knew that. And Jeremy. It's Jeremy, I think. Yes, Jeremy and Cicely. And she is a friend of his little sister, and he's been stalking her. And there was a sexy party that she'd went to, and her and a guy in a mask have a moment, and now Jeremy Volkov is stalking her, and he's very like upset that he is drawn in by her, but he can't help himself, so he's always keeping an eye on her and coming after her. And so she doesn't plan to stick around with him, but he can't help but like pull her back in. So this one also has some primal play in it. I feel like that just pairs well with breath play and throat grabbing, I guess. But yeah, this one, part of Legacy of the Gods. You could read these as standalones if you want, but the series starts with God of Malice, and I mean, that has lots of kinkiness in it too. I'm very much enjoying this series by Rena Kent, and I can't wait for God of Ruin to come soon. That one's supposed to be coming. Is it in August that we're getting God of Ruin? I don't know, but I'm excited. I'm excited for it. Okay, as I promised, I also have Unhinged by Onley James. Funny that I used that word. But this one is another serial killer romance. This one is about... Who is this? Adam. And I can't remember the other hero's name. I apologize, but this is an MM romance. And we have Adam, who is a member of the Mulvaney crew, which are a bunch of adopted boys. They've been adopted by Thomas Mulvaney, and they are all psychopaths, and he trained them to be serial killers and murder bad people. And one of the people that he murdered was this young man's father, but that man was a pedophile and a horrible, disturbing man. And now, many years later, this son... He knows that Adam is the one who killed his father, and he decides to go after him because he ruined his life. Because this kid doesn't remember what his father had done to him. He's like blocked that part out. So he just knows that his father was killed by Adam Mulvaney, and he sees this guy on TV and on magazines because his family is like rich socialites basically. But Adam now becomes intrigued by this man who's trying to kill him back. And so now he is stalking him, and he's very attracted to him, and he wants him for himself. And it goes from there. And there is definitely a really hot scene with throat grabbing and fucking in here that just like lives rent free. And Onley James has a lot of spicy stuff in all the books in this series. It's great. All right. Then I have to bring up a Pam Godwin. Oh my gosh, I just love her so much. If you're in your cowboy era and you like dark romance, you need to try the Trails of Sin series by her. It actually starts with Booted, which starts with some very dark stuff right off the bat. Okay, like these series are super intense. Now, the thing with this one is this is a different couple, but they should be read in order. So yeah, you should start with Booted. Sorry, I forgot about that. But to know what's happening in Buckled and Knotted is first. Wow, I'm so sorry. Knotted, then Buckled, then Booted. Okay, sorry. I'll show up. No, we won't. We're moving along. But anyway, this one, so good. I love this series. But yes, if you are loving, look at those rope handcuffs, isn't that cute? If you are in your cowboy era and you like dark romance, you need to try the series by Pam. It's like 5-6 years old now, so I feel like it gets forgotten, but the series is hot. It's dark. They're cowboys. They will kill when they need to. They love their ladies, and they know how to use their rope, okay? And it gets used quite a bit. But yes, you should start with Knotted, which starts with a assault not by the hero. This isn't that type of book. So you're getting into it with Pam right away. But I highly, highly recommend, I mean, any book by Pam. There is really only a couple by hers that I don't recommend, and we're not talking about those today. But highly, highly recommend this series, and I hope that you will give it a go. And I mean, look at it. Look at it, okay? You want to read it. You know you do. All right. Then we have Mafia, Madman by Mila Finelli. This one is book 3 in the Kings of Italy. This one is about Enzo, who was kind of sort of our villain in the first two. Not completely, but he definitely is entering his villain era after what happens to him in the first 2 books. He is not treated very well. It does not go well. And he wants to get revenge against Fausto and his family from the first 2 books for what they've done to him. And so now that he's free, he happens to run across Gia, who is Fausto's younger sister-in-law. And so he's like, you're just letting your sister-in-law traipse across Paris and get herself in danger. Well, I'm going to snap her up and use her for some revenge. And so he takes her and brings her to his yacht. But the thing he was not prepared for is even when he strips Gia and leaves her alone in a cold cell, she will not be cowed. She will not be told that she needs to cower and be meek. And what does the girl do with no clothes? She starts doing naked yoga. And she's like, you know what? I think I need a stretch so that I don't get cramped in here. And she brats him so hard, and he deserves it. Like, I love it. I love it. If you don't normally love a brat, you should love it in here. Because number one, they aren't in a consensual BDSM relationship, so she can brat the fuck out of him if she wants to, and he's just going to have to deal with it, right? Because at the end of the day, like, he is trying to take out his anger against Fausto, against this innocent woman. But she is from a mafia family as well, so it's kind of like, you should have been taking care of your sister-in-law if you were worried about it. And he thinks Fausto's gotten soft, letting the women in his life run his life. Well, he's about to discover that. This one also has some primal play in it. So, you know, I guess I could make another one of those videos, but it would have a lot of these same ones on it. But this one has some wonderful spicy scenes in it, and it definitely has some good old choking and throat grabbing in this one. And Enzo, he may have bitten off more than he can chew by taking this woman, for sure. All right, and then we actually have one that is not a dark romance after all of these. I'm sure there are more, like I said, but I didn't want to just find kind of like BDSM ones that did this. Even though a lot of the ones that I just shared are, they're also more dark romance than that. Like, only a couple of those are even consensual things happening. A lot of the books I recommended have like dubious consent involved, or it's kind of in the moment breath play, which don't do that in your real life. Of course, BDSM books are never a roadmap of how to do it yourself. Practice safe, sane, and consensual, and talk about it ahead of time. But anyway, one of them that I think is really good for being very spicy and, you know, being a contemporary one is Twisted Hate by Anna Huang. This one is very much an enemies to lovers between Josh and Jules in here, and they have explosive sex together, okay? Like, all their animosity and, you know, miscommunications through things just explode with each other, and they have this wild, crazy sexual experiences together that just get so dirty. The filth that comes out of Josh's mouth, holy. And it made me still give this book 4.5 stars, even though I had some issues with like the third act in this one and how Josh acts about some things. Their chemistry was so amazing, and I mean, I wanted a more of a grovel at the end of this book than I got, but overall, I really enjoyed how the story played out, and I really enjoy Anna Huang's writing. I can't wait for the audiobook to come out for King of Pride, because I've been putting off reading that one until I got the audiobook, and I can't wait to read it. But anyway, this is about this one. This one, Josh and Jules get wild and crazy, and we definitely have some good breath play happening. And I should be clear, too, with breath play. I haven't mentioned that this whole time. Breath play doesn't only involve when you're using a hand or using something else. It can also involve a cock in the throat. Can be a way to do breath play. Just saying. So just keep that in mind for some of these. But we put that at the end of the video, not the beginning, just in case any of the fainting flowers have left by now. So there you go, my friends. There's some more Taboo romance recommendations from your naughty romance recommendator, I don't know what I am. Anyway, if you'd like to check out more Taboo and naughty romance recs, I have a whole playlist right here, which you can check out. And make sure you subscribe to the channel, and maybe check out channel memberships or supporting my Patreon if you'd like to support what I do here. So, because YouTube don't pay me well for videos like this, but I make them for the joy of it. So, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.